Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. My name is Giridhari and today I want to tell you some very important facts from neuroscience, from the latest scientific research on emotions. I want to take you some very basic important facts on emotions and then three important useful techniques for you to deal with your emotions well, so you don't destroy yourself, so you don't tear yourself apart. Because if you don't deal well with your emotions, your life will be a disaster. You'll ruin your relationships, you will lose your job, you'll suffer internally, you'll just have a miserable life. It's such a huge, critical topic for you to master and have understanding over, is how to deal with emotions. Now, first thing you have to understand is that emotions are real things. They really are things that are happening in your brain. It's a concrete physical thing with physiological consequences. So they really exist. Because a lot of times people don't consider them important at all. It's like, oh, it's just an emotion. It doesn't matter what. It really matters. There's stuff going on in your brain. Energy in your brain is being directed to one area, not another area, because of the emotion. Physiological responses to that emotion, the way you think, everything is changing. Heart rate, your breathing rate, these things are changing because of emotions. So it's very much real. So you have to take it very seriously. Now, the second thing you have to understand is that emotions need to be processed. Just like you need to digest stuff that goes into your throat. Something you swallow has to be digested. So you have a digestive system, anything goes in, it gets digested. And emotions need to be processed. The same in your mind, in your brain, they have to be processed. Now you might be thinking, but Giri, I just eat. I don't have to be, conscious of my eating. I just eat and I forget about it and my body automatically digests my food. So why do I have to do anything special? Why do I have to watch a video about processing my emotions? It should just be all automatic. And yes, you're right. It is usually automatic, but there is something very different that's going on with modern civilization. So our current modern human civilization is something we are not equipped to deal with. Now, in terms of eating, you're having your 3, 4, 5 meals a day, whatever, but you're just, normal, most people just like eating and they're not eating crazy stuff and crazy amounts of stuff. They're just eating enough and their bodies are capable of digesting what they eat. Now, emotionally, we are dealing with way more emotional interaction than we used to. So emotions, you don't have to worry about them. It's automatic if they're not too many or too intense. So when you have emotions that are just too many emotions or too intense, then you have to consciously deal with them because you can't do it automatically. And that's why we're having this video, and that's why you have to be careful about it. That's why there's so many people with so many mental problems these days. Now, why do we have, what's wrong with modern society? Why is it so emotionally challenging? Well, it's because there's just a lot of stuff going on. There's just a lot of people. Now, emotions are generated in contact, usually with other people. That's like the biggest source of emotional things. When you hear a story, when you're in contact with somebody else, you have a conversation. So any interaction that generates emotions. So now we have so many people on this planet, and we live with so many people, and we work sometimes in huge offices with so many people, and you deal with so many clients. And then to make matters worse, we have social media, and then you're in contact with thousands of people all of a sudden. And this is all quite unnatural. It's just a bit too much. And then on top of all that, you have all your streaming, you have Netflix, so you're watching all this content, you're watching so many shows and movies, and you have video, and all these things are generating emotions for you to process. You're having to process all these things. Now just compare this to hundreds of years ago when you're just in some little village. with like 80, 100 people which you've known your whole life. Best part of the day, you're just like out in the field with some sheep or something, cattle, or you just like, taking care of the corn, or you're in some little shop making shoes or something, or sewing a dress, and that's all you do. You wouldn't, there wouldn't be any radio, there wouldn't be any music, there wouldn't be movies, there wouldn't be social media, you wouldn't hardly meet anyone. It was much less to deal with emotionally, much less. So then you could easily process that, but today we can't. Okay, next thing that you have to know, how to process emotions. Process emotions means that emotion has to be recognized and allow to follow its course. So you feel something and your mind wants to feel it, recognize it, see what happened, and feel it. That's processing the emotion. You want to go through this cycle of, okay, I felt this, and this happened, I recognize it, and then it's over now. Okay, fine, good. So that was the whole thing. But again, when we have too many of them, you don't have time to process all of them. So they start piling up and they don't finish their processing well. So then you have to take care of it consciously. Now, next thing you have to know, part of processing your emotions means expressing your emotion. So expressing emotion is a natural thing for us social creatures. So you feel something and you want to express it with your face. That's why our faces are like fantastically complex muscle structure. So we can demonstrate all these different emotions with our face. So you want to express the emotion. You maybe want to say something. You want to share it with somebody else. You want to talk about it. So you can write it down. It just wants to come out. It wants to, there's theater. You can do like acting, therapy, just expressing emotion, saying it. That's part of processing emotion. So that's an important thing you have to be aware of. And a lot of times today, we don't have that much choice of processing, of expressing our emotions. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, so you want to express your emotions. Now, the other thing you have to understand is that work is a real minefield. There's a lot, some people say they hate work. A lot of people like work, but some people say they hate work. And maybe if you hate your job, it's because of the emotional component of it. Because what's going on in work, you have to deal with a lot of emotions because there's a lot of people. Like that's when you're working, you're talking with lots of coworkers, with clients, and you have to deal with emotions which usually aren't even very nice. You have to deal with a lot of negative emotions at work. You have to be submissive in the hierarchy. You have to deal with frustration, with anger. You have to deal with angry clients, with, maybe not so nice bosses. And maybe, coworkers are trying to, screw you over. So there's a lot of negative emotions. You're dealing with anxiety of losing the job, frustration with the work itself because you work in groups and it's not working and it doesn't go anywhere and you get frustrated. So you're dealing with lots of things which naturally would make you feel negative emotions. Plus, I just said that processing emotions means expressing emotions. But at work, a lot of times you can't express the emotion you're feeling because it's not appropriate. It's not professional, or it's your job not to express the emotion. For example, if you work with clients directly, like yours, you're in a store, you're in a restaurant, you can't express your emotions. You have to express another kind of emotion. And that's very damaging, that's very taxing to express a different emotion from the one you're feeling. It's bad enough not expressing your emotions. It's much harder to express a different, sometimes contrary emotion to what you're feeling. And that's why it's so stressful also for doctors, for example, call centers, people who work in call centers, people who work with the public. Very stressful because you're feeling anger, frustration, and you have to be polite and kind, and you're like, oh, you want to kill this guy, but you're being, no, it's fine. So it's very hard to do this showing of a different emotion. So that's going to tax you a lot. So you have to be aware of that as well. Okay, now let's get on to the solution. So this is what's going on with the emotions, what you have to be aware of. So now let's start seeing how to deal with it. So the first thing I said, the first thing the emotion wants to do, the processing an emotion, is to become aware of the emotion. So the first thing you have to do is to become an observer. Learn to be mindful of emotions. Like, we're no longer ignoring them. Just try to consciously be mindful of emotions. So throughout the day, as you're going along, you're the observer of your emotions and you're seeing them happening. Okay, I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling humiliation, I'm feeling frustration. And you're observing that as it's happening. You're mindful of your mind's emotions. So as they're happening, you can see them, and already that's a big step, because now you're recognizing the emotion immediately. You're seeing it happen, you're aware of it, and you're already doing a lot to process it right there and then, which is the best time to deal with it, right there. Okay, this is happening, I can see it, and I am not the emotion. So you're already like not identifying with that emotion, but you're aware of it. You're not hiding it, but you're not identifying with it. Well, that's what we want. We don't want to neither become identified with the emotion, nor to ignore the emotion. We want to be conscious of it, but as an observer. So do that. And if you have especially like a difficult life, if you can notice that your life is, because of your work, for example, and you just have like a lot of more difficult, more intense emotions, maybe start writing them down as they're happening through the day. So take a little time, like you just had a bad meeting with your boss or something, so just, you can use like a little notepad, you can use WhatsApp to send yourself notes or something. Just do a little quick thing like, 11 a.m., unpleasant talk with the boss, feeling frustrated, boom. 2 p.m., had a bad conversation with my boyfriend, boom. And you just start feeling neglected, feeling frustrated, feeling angry. You just write it down quickly, just so you don't have too much accumulated that you have to remember to be conscious of. You write it down. The act of writing it down is already therapeutic, so you're already like helping yourself by just doing that. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, what I advise all my students to do, and I write about this in my book, The 3T Path, create an emotional cure, a daily emotional cure. What does that mean? You take a little time off, a few minutes, 3, 4, 5 minutes, go somewhere silent, close your eyes, get some space, get some privacy somewhere, figure out a way to just be away from everything. Of course, switch off your phone, be away from all that stuff. Take a couple of deep breaths. Close your eyes, look inside. And imagine you're like in this dark theater, you're on the stage, and there's, the crowd's there, but it's all dark. And you're gonna give enough silence, and you're gonna look into the crowd and say, okay, does anybody want to raise their hands? It's the crowd of emotions. So in that crowd are all the emotions that you've had that day, that you're carrying with you, that haven't been processed yet. So you give it room, give that silence, and then you'll see like these little, like a little hand coming up, as it were. Yes, yes, go ahead. And then the spotlight goes on, and hi, I'm frustration, and I'm feeling frustrated because I did all that work, and then this thing happened, and I couldn't do it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, got you. Anybody else? And then, yes. I'm anxiety, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pay the bills at the end of the month, and I'm worried about that. Okay, good. Anybody else? And then, yes, I'm anger, I did that thing to that person and didn't remember my birthday, and so I'm angry. Okay. So just give yourself some space, create that inner space where these things can come up and not stay in hiding. You don't want them to stay in the dark, because then they won't be processed. They'll be there, creating problems, demanding attention in weird ways, like hackling. It's like they'll be hackling from the dark and ruining your life. You know, they'll be like terrible. But if you give attention, you recognize them, that's what you want. Okay, so that's 2. 3, consider seriously taking to the path of yoga, this path that we teach here in this channel, the 3T path, the path of yoga, Bhagavad Gita, etc. Because the path of yoga, not the asanas, of course, but the real path of yoga, the ancient path of spiritual yoga, is all about making your mind powerful. It's all about elevating your consciousness, expanding your mind. Okay, so you become stronger and stronger and more powerful. You understand what to focus your mind on, how to focus. You have a deeper anchor to your existence, a deeper purpose to guide you. Things are much deeper, larger. So what happens, for example, take the example of a rough sea. No, not like a tornado or something, but just like a rough sea. You have like, not too rough. You have your 2-meter waves or something. 1 meter, 2 meter waves. Okay, so it's a bit of a rough sea. Now, imagine you're in that sea in a tiny little boat, maybe even like a pool float. You will be thrown around everywhere. It's going to be so dramatic. It's going to be horrific, right? You're going to be, oh my God, you'll be thrown here and there, and it's going to be like a horrible experience. Now imagine that same sea, but now with a giant, giant cargo ship. It's a gigantic cargo ship. Now those 2-meter waves in a gigantic, they won't do anything to the cargo ship. They're just going to hit the side of the cargo ship. It won't even bite. It won't even do anything. The cargo ship won't even feel it. It's just going to be like totally fine. Like, yeah, the 2-meter waves, who cares? Not a problem. And that's what happens with us. The stronger your mind is, the more these little interactions won't bother you. They won't create, you're not ignoring them. They just won't even be an issue. You understand? It's not that you're ignoring them because you don't want to ignore emotions, but they won't register anymore. They won't bother you. You won't have to process them so much because they won't even register. And what you naturally have, the natural emotions the body feels as now I'm getting spiritual as a soul, the natural emotion is of peace and contentment and joy. These are natural states when nothing is bothering us. That's the natural state we have. So as you expand your mind, as you become stronger, the little annoying emotions won't, the little frustration, anger, fear, these things you won't be feeling so much, less and less as you advance more, but you'll be feeling more and more the natural states of being, of joy, of contentment, of harmony, of peace. So that is a very powerful, that's the best way to go about it, and still doing the other 2 steps I mentioned. So that's it. Let me know if this is helpful for you, if you think this could help you change the way you deal with your emotions, and have your rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.